Hi guys, so a guy called Richard, who incidentally follows me and I follow him on Twitter, phoned into James O'Brien's show with what could be one of the greatest ideas for Labour and perhaps other opposition parties when it comes to Brexit. Richard is pro-European, but explains perfectly the problem for Starmer at the moment when it comes to how he can deal with Brexit from a rhetorical point of view. Boris Johnson sold the idea that he got Brexit done. Done being the key word here. Richard explains the idea of the takeaway, which I think us pro-Europeans should really get behind. Let's hear what he had to say.
Well, I want to start off by saying that I was one of these Remainers that was quite angry with, the whole Make Brexit Work thing from Starmer.
Yes, okay.
I'm beginning to think he's actually stumbled on something really quite clever.
Oh, good.
If you think about Brexit, and it was sold very, very much on a sort of emotional thing.
It was.
And you look at the areas like the Red Wall.
Yes.
What Johnson did was use a technique which they use in sales, which is called the takeaway. Now, what you do is you threaten to take something away from people, and then they grab it and they really want it. They don't necessarily know what it is, but they know that if you want to take it away from it, it must be something worth having. So I think that if he campaigned to rejoin, Johnson would actually be able to say
they're taking it away from you.
He's
still
you.
Yes, I think you're absolutely. Oh, I love this. Carry on.
Okay, so quite cleverly, Johnson has sort of shot himself in the foot because he claims to have got Brexit done. He's taken away his trump card.
You can never take away something that has been permanently delivered.
Yeah. So I think the clever thing to do...
Well, that's why he has to avoid rejoin like the plague, isn't it? That's why the vaguest suggestion of rejoin reopens the door to the takeaway, to Johnson to say he wants to stop it, he wants to reverse it, he wants to take it away from you. That's the best explanation so far, much better than mine. He cannot open the rejoin door because of the takeaway principle of selling.
Yep.
Love it.
So,
love it.
I think the first thing what he needs to do is to try and get away from the most toxic parts of Brexit, and that's the disaster capitalist thing. So things like the effluent going into rivers, nobody wants that. We don't want lower food standards. We don't want our farmers impoverished.
Yeah, it might be too late for that.
And we don't want the privatisation of the NHS.
Okay.
So I think a campaign based on the line something like Brexit doesn't have to mean, and then insert any of those things in there, would get the Tories on the absolute back foot.
Brexit doesn't have to mean, what's the polite word? Crap in our rivers, right?
Yep.
Brexit doesn't have to mean privatising the NHS. Brexit doesn't have to mean the rich getting richer. Brexit doesn't have to mean a decline in your food standards. Brexit doesn't have to mean British farmers being kiboshed by Australian farmers. All of these things. That's strong, actually, Richard.
So then you get into a position where the Tories can't defend that. We can realign. And then the clever thing about this is once you get the toxicity out of it, then the Tufton Street people will have no interest in it at all.
Wonderful. A wonderful idea. I fully support Richard on this. I think this is what Starmer needs to do, because we have to be realistic here. The UK isn't going to rejoin the European Union for a long time. I'm sorry to say it. I would prefer it to be fast-tracked, but that's not going to happen. First, we need to get the Tories out. Once the Tories out, then the first steps can take place to rejoin the European Union. But when it comes to dealing with Brexit, many people still cling to the idea that it was worth it. Many people cling to the idea that it was democratic. So, in a sense, by saying, I'm going to undo that, you're providing fuel, providing ammunition to the likes of Boris Johnson and Brexiteers. So I think this is a wonderful idea. So you're not taking something away from people. You're saying, okay, we have our Brexit. How do we tweak it? How do we make it, we change it in a sense so that it suits the people. So, as he said, Brexit doesn't have to mean crap in the rivers. Brexit doesn't have to mean the privatization of the NHS. Brexit doesn't have to mean our fishing communities are destroyed. And how does Boris Johnson respond to that? He can't. So Starmer can go to the fishing communities and say, look, Brexit has happened. Some of you, most of you voted for this. But it doesn't mean that your community has to suffer. Now, Richard is 100% correct here. James O'Brien jumped in and he said, some of this is a little bit too late. And yes, a lot of this is too late. But from a rhetorical point of view, you need to be able to sell something to the public. Is it possible to undo the damage of Brexit? Completely, of course not. Is it possible to undo some of the damage? Yes, I do believe so. And with eventual realignment, because this is going to happen, but we have to get to that. We have to get to that stage, and there are a number of steps before we get to the stage where the UK realigns, where the UK re-enters the single market and the customs union, eventually becomes a member again. I think it's going to happen. I just don't know when. But the first steps have to be to convince the public, okay, Brexit has happened. Boris Johnson has said it's done. Well, are you happy with what he has delivered? No, you're not. No one's happy. Even Brexiteers are not happy. Some of them, even the racist ones, are not happy, but I covered that recently. But you have to say to them, okay, but Brexit doesn't have to mean, maybe we can think up of another slogan, Brexit doesn't mean crap in rivers. Brexit doesn't mean this. But the Labour Party have a real opportunity here to jump on this, to use it to their advantage, to convince Brexiteers, and I'm talking about Brexiteers in the, people who used to vote Labour, switched to Boris Johnson in 2019, to get those people back. Telling them we're going to undo Brexit isn't a vote winner. Let's be realistic here. But the solution is to say to them, Brexit doesn't have to, you have your Brexit, Boris Johnson delivered it, but it doesn't have to mean that your community is poorer. We're going to make it work. This goes against a lot of what I truly believe when it comes to Brexit, okay? But we have to think about practical solutions. Complaining about Brexit all the time is not going to fix it. We have to first get the Tories out, get Labour Party, Starmer government in, and then they can start undoing the damage of Brexit. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. I'll leave a link to Richard's Twitter account. Do follow him on Twitter. And I'll leave a link to this interview, the whole lot of it. I'll let you listen to all of it. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.